Friends, in this demonstration I am going to explain how will you start a frame window from an applet window. It means first we are going to start an applet, and from the applet we are going to generate a frame window. So how it shall be done, that I am going to explain in this demonstration. So my initial requirement is I need an applet, because from the applet I am going to start another window which is frame. Okay, for that we can override the init method, which is the first lifecycle method for every applet. If it is necessary, only then override. So here I am going to say that the moment initially applet is loaded, I want to start a frame, then do the necessary coding in the init. Or you want to say that create frame and it should be displayed in the start method, then override the start method. It's all based on the demand. Now from the applet I want to create a frame window, then I have to create a subclass of frame. Then later I'll be creating object for that subclass of frame, then we can display the frame window. So as how do we create an applet, that is class some name extends applet, we have to create a subclass for the standard class called frame. So let me create that. I am going to create a new class, a plain Java class. Its name is, we can say that first frame window, some name you may give, and say that it extends the standard class called frame. As you see that the frame is a standard class in the package java.awt. Just create a class subclass for the class frame, and now I am going to declare a reference variable for the same class, first frame window. I name the reference variable also first frame window, but you can see here the is small only, so there is no problem. Then I am going to instantiate in the init method. Now we are going to see anything happen or not. For that I am going to run the applet again. You can see that just an applet is created, but we are not able to see anything. But look at the code. We have an object, and next what I am going to do is I am going to override start method of the applet. In the start method of the applet I am going to display the frame window. To display the frame window, after creating the object for the frame window, use the object, that is first frame window, and say that set visibility, that is set visible as true. By default the visibility of every frame window will be false. By default its visibility is false. So turn it into true by set visible as true. We should know that why we are calling the set visible as true value. So a boolean value true must be passed to the set visible method for our object first frame window. Otherwise by default it will be false, and we will never be able to see the frame window which we create. Then now we are again going to check is there any output. Now you can see that the frame object is visible. This is your frame, this is your applet. You can see that this is your applet, but now I need to extend the window if I want to see the frame. So how will you give some default size for the frame? For that I am going to show. And before going to continue that part, let us explore about this frame window. You can see that there is no title, but in the case of applet there is some title or title is displayed. There some title is displayed, but here if we want to set some title, how it shall be done, we are going to see that. Now again you can see that even though you make a request to close the window by clicking this closing button, it will never be closed. I'll show you that. I'm clicking this, you can see that it is clicked, but it is not getting closed. So we have to handle this closing button event. And but in the applet you can see that the moment I close it, the applet is getting closed. Since applet is the parent for the frame, now the moment you kill the parent, the child will be killed automatically. Now we are going to set the size. Set the size for the frame window. For that, use the frame window object dot set size. As you see that two arguments we can pass, width and height. For example, 200, 300. Now I am going to run the file once again, and you can see that now the frame is coming with some default size. Width, this is width 200 and this is height 300. If you want, you can extend the size by using the mouse. Again I'm closing the applet. Now as I told you that once again I am going to run the file. If I close the closing button, the frame will not be closed. So how will you close this frame? The moment I give a request to close the button by clicking this closing button, that is this red color button. For that we have to handle the events. So here what type of events we have to handle, that only we are going to explore. It is about closing a window. So we have a listener called window listener interface that we need to implement. So how it shall be done, that is our next part. For that I am going to use the subclass of frame. Say that this subclass of frame implements window listener interface. You can see that this is a standard interface which is in the package java.awt.event. Now it shows some error. It shows that we have to override all the abstract methods of the window listener. So there are two options to use the window listener, either by using implements window listener or you can use it through the anonymous inner class. So first I'll explain with the help of this implements window listener. Now you can see that yellow bulb indicator, click it, it shows implement all abstract methods, and you can see the abstract methods of window listener. The first one is window opened. When the window is opened, that is here we are starting the frame window from an applet. So the moment the frame window has pop up, this window opened method will be called, and there is something called window closing. That is, see here, this is the closing button. Now if I click close, the window will be closed. So the moment I click, what happens? I am requesting the window to be closed. At the time window closing method will be automatically invoked. So after that immediately window closed event. So once window is closed, immediately this method will be invoked. The next one is about the window icon effect. Window icon effect means, see, I am going to minimize it. It is called window icon effect. It shows like an icon in my in your Windows. You can call it as desk bar, like that. Then restoring, at that time window D icon effect. Then the moment window is open, you can see that activated will be invoked. I'll show that. At that you will understand it better. Then deactivated, it is losing the focus, or when you icon effect, we are going to explore all these things one by one. So let me put some display statement for the console by using system.out.println. Here we will say that window is opened. Here we will say that requested to close, and after that we have to dispose our frame. For that we have a standard method called dispose. You can see that the moment dispose is called, it releases all of the native screen resources used by this window. Dispose the frame. Then immediately after that, window closed event will be working. So we can say that window is closed. This happens when you minimize the window. Icon of system.out.println. System.out.println. Window is, you can type it as minimized or icon effect as you wish. And here it is window is D icon effect. And this happens when the window is activated. And this method will be invoked when the window is deactivated. Okay. Now let us run the code once again. I am going to run the file, and you can see that there any displays coming? No. I'm going to close, anything happens? No. So one thing is missing now. That is about the registration part. We have to register the frame window to the listener interface. So how do you register this? That only we are going to see. For that, I am going to use the constructor. And you can see that the constructor throws some exception called headless exception. This is a checked exception. I'll explain. When this exception is generated, see, now we are working with the Windows. So whenever you're working with the Windows, that is about the display part, then keyboard or mouse, if the environment doesn't support any of these things, then it throws the exception called headless exception. And it is not mandatory that we have to throw that exception. Without that also it works fine. Now here I am going to register my frame window to the listener interface, or we can say that event listener interface. So how will you do that? For that we have the method add, then type is window listener, say that this. Now we are going to check the output once again. Now we can see that all the events are handled. We can see that the applet is generating the frame window. Now you can see that window is activated in the console, window is open in the console. Now I am going to click my applet window. Now the frame window has lost the focus, so you can see that here our status is getting, we are getting a status as window is deactivated. Now I am going to minimize it. We can see that I minimize the applet. You can see that now frame window is in the front. It shows that window is activated. Now I am going to minimize this. You can see that the latest status is window is activated. I am going to minimize the frame, and now you can see that when it is minimized, first deactivated, then iconified. I am going to restore the window. You can see that window is activated and followed by de-iconified. Now I am going to give the request to close the window by clicking this close button. You may watch very carefully here what happens. You can see that requested to close, then window is deactivated, then followed by window is closed. So if you don't handle the window listener in the frame, we will not be able to close the frame. So here you can see that how the frame is closed, that is by using dispose. Don't use system.exit instead of dispose. If you use system.exit, the whole application will be terminated, and you can see that the applet, who is the parent also will be killed. So don't use system.exit. System.exit is to come out from the whole application. We are saying that just dispose that window, that is our frame window. Now I am going to explain about how will you use the adapter class here. That is the easiest way. That also I am going to use through the anonymous inner class. So I am not going to use any more implements window listener. Here I am going to say that new, we have an equivalent adapter class called window adapter, like this. We can see that here we have to put the anonymous inner class code. Suppose I want to handle the event only for the closing, then I will put only the closing thing here, so that it is not mandatory that I have to override all the necessary methods. Now I am going to remove all other things which are not required for my current purpose. You can see that if you use the anonymous inner class, use the necessary method, only use the necessary method, only override the necessary method. Okay, let me align the code. Yeah, now it looks good. And if you want, you can display something more. When you iconified window, something else should happen, then override iconified. Window iconified. So if you use the window adapter, that is advantage of when you compare. That is advantage of using window adapter when you compare it with window listener. So if it is not required, you may remove the code. Now I am going to show the output once again. Run file. Now when I close the frame, you can see that it is getting closed. So for the window listener, we have an equivalent class called window adapter. The advantage of using window adapter is no need to override all the methods of the interface window listener. only necessary methods to be overridden when we use the window adapter. If you don't know the anonymous inner class, create a separate class that extends window adapter and pass that object as an argument in this place. And in that window adapter subclass, you may override the necessary methods. That also I will show you how it shall be done without using anonymous inner class. Create a separate class. For example, I am going to name it as uh, window event handler, and say that it extends window adapter, and now you may override the necessary method, for example window closing, because this method will be invoked the moment you click the closing button of the frame window. And here I have to call the method dispose. Now you can see that it gives an error. We cannot simply call dispose because dispose is a standard method in the class called frame. So we have to pass the object of first frame window to the class WindEvent handler. So how it shall be done, that we will see. Now here what argument we have to pass? The object which handles your window events. So for that we have a class called WindEvent adapter. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to say that new window event handler. So now the constructor of window event handler will be invoked, or the event registration also happens. Fine. Now how will you say that? How will you call the dispose from here? That only we are going to see. So for that I want the object of frame. Object of subclass of frame is required, and our subclass is first frame window. So we can say that object of, this means we want object of first frame window. For that I am going to say that this here. So what happens? Current object. Current object means the object for the class first frame window. So now we'll fix the error. Generate the constructor for that and say that this takes an argument first frame window. Now I have to take the reference out for that first frame window, and inside we may code like this dot ffw equal ffw. Now you can say that ffw dot dispose. Now you may run the applet. Now this is your frame. Close it. You can see that it is closed. So we'll go through the code once again. Here we created a separate class which is handling the window event, where it says that it extends window adapter. Since we are using the window adapter, only override the necessary method. And since we have to call the dispose from a different class, in the previous session, in the previous thing, we saw that it is called from the subclass of frame. So we were able to call directly, but here we have to say that the object of first frame window. So how we are getting this object? When you do the registration, we are creating the event handling object here, that is a new window event handler, and here I am mentioning an argument called this. This means current object. So what is our current class? First frame window. So we are passing the first frame window object to here, and that is received through this constructor, and its scope we are taking it outside like this, Then using that reference variable we are calling the discourse. That's all for this demonstration. Thank you all for watching.